morning, students. Myself, Hetal Shah from New LJ Institute of Engineering and Technology. Today, we are going to discuss the subject probability and statistics. And today's our topic of the discussion is correlation and regression. So, let's start correlation. First, I want to introduce the correlation and regression. So, the correlation and regression are the most commonly used technique for investigating the relationship between two quantitative variables. Correlation refers to the relationship of two or more variables. It measures the closeness of the relationship between the variables. And regression established a functional relationship between the variables. So in correlation, both the variable x and y are random variables, where in regression, x is a random variable and y is a fixed variable. So the coefficient of correlation is a relative measure. The regression coefficient is an absolute figure. So first, we'll start with the correlation. Here, correlation is the relationship that exists between two or more variables, and two variables are said to be correlated if a change in one variable affects a change in the other variable. Such a data connecting two variables is called bivariate data. Thus, correlation is a statistical analysis which measure and analysis the degree or extent to which two variables fluctuate with reference to each other. Some examples of such relationships are as follows. Number 1, relationship between height and weight. Number 2, relationship between price and demand of commodity. Third, relationship between rainfall and yield of crop. And the fourth, that is the relationship between age of husband and age of wife. Types of correlation. Correlation is classified into 4 types. First one, positive and negative correlation. Second one, simple and multiple correlation. Third is partial and total correlation. Fourth is linear and non-linear correlation. First, we start with the positive and negative correlation. Depending on the variation in the variable, correlation may be positive or negative. First, positive correlation, and that is if both the variables vary in same direction, the correlation is said to be positive. In other words, if the value of one variable increases, such value of the other variable also increases, or we can say if value of one variable decreases, the value of the other variable also decreases. Example, correlation between the height and weight of group of persons is a positive correlation. So here height is 150, then the weight is 60, the height is 152, at that time weight is 62, height is 155, the height is given in the centimeter, right? So here 155, at that time weight is 64, when height is 160, at that time weight is 65, it is in kg. Height is 162, so the related weight is 67, and height is 165, at that time related weight is 69. So you can see easily here, when height is increases, at that time weight is also increase, right? So here both relation are positive correlation. Negative correlation, if both the variables vary in opposite direction, so the correlation is said to be negative. In other words, if the value of one variable increases, the value of the other variable decreases. Or if we can say that if value of one variable decrease, the value of the other variable increase, that type of correlation is known as negative correlation. Here the example is the correlations between the price and demand of a commodity is a negative correlation, right? So it is the example, you can check easily. So it is the negative correlation. Here one variable is decreases, at that time other variable demand is increases. Simple and multiple correlation. Depending upon the study of the number of variables, correlation may be simple or multiple. First is simple correlation. When only two variables are studied, the relationship is described as a simple correlation. Example, the quantity of a money and price level, and other one is demand and price. Same way, the multiple correlation is when more than two variables are studied, the relationship is described as a multiple correlation, and it is example of relationship of price with demand and supply of a commodity, right? Here, more than two variables are correlated. Partial and total correlation. Multiple correlation may be either partial or total. Partial correlation is when more than two variables are studied, excluding some other variables. The relationship is termed as a partial correlation. And total correlation is when more than two variables are studied without excluding any variable. The relationship is termed as total correlation. The another one is linear and non-linear correlation. So depending upon the ratio of change between two variables, the correlation may be linear or non-linear. First, linear correlation. If the ratio of change between two variables is constant, the correlation is said to be linear. If such variables are plotted on a graph, a straight line is obtained. Example, milk and curd. So if we take 5 liter milk and we can take from that 5 liter milk 2 kilogram curd. Similarly, from the 10 liter milk, we can take 4 kilogram curd, right? And the same way, from 15, we can take 6 kilogram curd. From 20 liter milk, we can take 8 kilogram curd. And similarly, for 25 and 30, respectively 10 and 12. So here, the ratio of the first one is 5 by 2. Other one, 10 by 4, that is also 5 by 2. Ratio of 15 by 6, that is also 5 by 2, right? And up to 30 by 12, that is also 5 by 2. So here, ratio is constant, right? So it is known as a linear correlation. Non-linear correlation. If the ratio of change between two variables is not constant, the correlation is said to be nonlinear. So the graph of a nonlinear or curvilinear relationship will be a curve. Here, the ratio of the advertising expense in lakhs and sales in lakhs. So the first ratio is 3 by 10. Second one is 6 by 12, and 6 by 12 is, that is 1/2. So that is differ from the first one, right? Here all ratio are different. So this type of correlation is known as a non-linear correlation. Method of studying correlation. There are two different methods of studying correlation. First one is graphics method and other one is mathematical method. In graphics method, there are two type of method. First is scatter diagram and other one is simple graph. And for the mathematical method, there are two methods, that is Karl Pearson's coefficient of correlation and Spearman's rank coefficient of correlation. So first we start with the graphic method, and the first, that is the scattered diagram. The scatter diagram is a diagrammatic representation of bivariant data to find the correlation between two variables. There are various correlationships between two variables represented by the following scatter diagram. First one is perfect positive correlation, and that is here, if we want to describe by the graph, it is, this is x-axis, this one is y-axis, right? This is our origin. Here, the perfect positive correlation is if all plotted points lie on a straight line rising from the lower left hand corner to the upper right hand corner, the correlation is said to be perfect positive. So we may take this graph is like this, right? Similarly, here r equal to 1, right? Similarly, the perfect negative correlation is what? If all the plotted points lie on a straight line falling from the upper left hand corner to the lower right hand corner, the correlation is said to be perfectly negative. And if we want to describe it through graph, it is x-axis, this one is y-axis, here this is our origin, and here this line is represent the perfect negative correlation, that is r is equal to -1. Third one is high degree of positive correlation. If all the plotted points lie in the narrow strip rising from the lower left hand corner to the upper right hand corner, it indicates a high degree of positive correlation. And if we want to represent through graph, it will be here like this. Okay. In this graph, again, this is x-axis, this one is y-axis, right? And this is the high degree positive correlation, because here the rising from lower left hand corner to the upper right hand corner. High degree of negative correlation. So it is right. This one is x-axis. This one is y-axis. And if we want to represent negative correlation, and high degree negative correlation is like that. So if all plotted points lie in the narrow strip falling from the upper left hand corner to the lower right hand corner, it indicates the existence of high degree of negative correlation. And last, that is no correlation. And if we want to represent this no correlation by graphically, it is like this, right? There is no correlation, students. So if all plotted points lie on a straight line parallel to the x-axis or y-axis, or in a haphazard manner, it indicates the absence of any relationship between the variables. So it is known as no correlation. Now, merits of scatter diagram. It is simple and non-mathematical method to find out the correlation between the variables. Second one, it gives indication of the degree of linear correlation between the variables. Third, it is easy to understand. And fourth, it is not influenced by the size of extreme items. And the second method, and that is simple graph. And this method is a simple graph is a diagrammatic representation of a bivariate data to find the correlation between the two variables. The value of the two variables are also plotted on a graph paper. Two curves are obtained, one for the variable x and other for the variable y. If both the curves move in the same direction, the correlation is said to be positive. If both the curves move in opposite direction, the correlation is said to be negative. This method is used in the case of time series, and it does not reveal the extent to which the variables are related. Students, this is the basic information regarding correlation. In next lecture, we'll study about the example. Okay. Feel free to contact me for any query. Till that, enjoy the study. Thank you.